So, what's the difference between a psychopath and a sociopath? Well, let's start with, what does it mean to be a psychopath or a sociopath? So, a psychopath, when you think of a psychopath, you think, oh, a murderer, a serial killer, something like that. You think violence, you think murder, you think death. But no, that's not necessarily what it means to be a psychopath. What it means to be a psychopath is you don't become a psychopath, you're born one. Now, I guess technically, maybe if you have a specific enough trauma to the brain, like the physical brain, maybe that can happen. But basically, the thing is, you can't feel emotions properly. You can't. So, you can't really feel happiness, you can't feel sadness, it's just, everything is just meh. You just can't. Which is why I'm assuming that maybe it's possible that if a person's brain gets damaged, like in the exact way that stops their brain from being able to, like, take in the chemicals or hormones or whatever that make you happy or sad, then they can potentially become a psychopath. I'm not sure, but that's what it means to be a psychopath. And the reason why psychopaths are portrayed as serial killers, or just murderers, or just seen as like bad people, is because technically, like, it's easier for them to be one. It's easier for them to be a murderer. Because then they don't have to feel the guilt or anything. They don't feel bad. Like, if you can't feel emotions, then they definitely can't feel empathy or sympathy. Now, they can understand, if they're smart enough, they can learn how to understand how other people's emotions work, but only from an outside viewpoint. It's like a hollow sort of empathy. It looks like empathy on the outside, but it's not. It's just them noticing the signs and understanding what it makes the other people do. Which is how you probably know a psychopath. You probably know a sociopath. Honestly. Because they have to learn how to act, quote-unquote, normal. How to pretend to experience emotion. They have to learn the proper reactions. Because otherwise, people think they're weird. And that doesn't go very well for their social status or anything. And so, yeah, the reason why psychopaths are portrayed as bad people is because it's easier for them to be a bad person. Because they don't feel bad about hurting people. Because they don't think, oh, how would I feel if this happened to me? It's like, well, I wouldn't get sad. I wouldn't. But yeah. Now for a sociopath. And I will also say, a psychopath, like, pretty much if you are a psychopath, you were born a psychopath. Because that's how your brain was developed that way. And most likely, if you're a psychopath, you have had a psychopath in your bloodline before. Because that's just how your brain developed genetically. Which makes sense. But a sociopath, if a person has a psychopath for a parent, then chances are they're more likely to be a psychopath or a sociopath themselves. Now, a sociopath, a bit of it can be genetic, but you're not born a sociopath. I think that might happen, but it would be very rare. Because the thing that makes someone a sociopath is trauma when they're really young. If you experience trauma when you're really young, like, this doesn't happen to everyone who experiences that, but you can basically, you become a sociopath, which means you shut everyone out, kind of. You shut things out. It's like an emotional barrier. You don't experience emotions properly, but that doesn't mean you don't experience them at all. It's like a psychopath, but you have the potential to care. Psychopaths don't care, but sociopaths can. Sociopath is due to circumstance. Psychopath is due to birth. It's just how you can become a sociopath, basically, but you can't really become a psychopath. And a sociopath is also more likely to be a murderer than a quote-unquote normal person, but not nearly as likely as a psychopath. Still more likely, but not as likely as a psychopath. But that being said, that doesn't mean that psychopaths and sociopaths are bad people. They may seem like it sometimes, but they're not. Not necessarily. Just because you're a psychopath or a sociopath doesn't necessarily mean that you're a bad person. And I doubt that, at least psychopaths, I doubt that they, get offended by people thinking that they're a bad person. They might be like, well, that's not true. But, well, I mean, if they're not a bad person, then they're like, well, that's not true. But they don't really get upset because they can't. Sociopaths, maybe. Not sure. They're more complicated. But, yeah, and tendencies of a sociopath and a psychopath. Let's go. When a psychopath is young, it's pretty easy to tell that they're a psychopath, because most psychopaths, when they're younger, harm or kill animals. I'm not sure why. It might be just out of pure and utter curiosity, and since they don't feel bad about hurting anything, then nothing really gets in the way. And so that's one tendency that a psychopath has, at least when growing up. Both sociopaths and psychopaths, since I'm gonna go with psychopaths right here. The psychopaths definitely can't feel bad about doing things to other people. They manipulate, because that's kind of what it's kind of what they have to do. They have to lie in a way. I mean, they don't have to, but to seem normal, they do. By faking emotion. But if a psychopath can fake emotion, that means that they understand emotions, and when they're portrayed and how they're portrayed, and what situations to portray them in, which means they understand what situations cause them. So, and since they don't feel them themselves, they're able to have more of an outside viewpoint on it. So, they're able to, so then they know how to manipulate the emotions of others. And they don't view others. Psychopaths don't really, they aren't necessarily narcissistic, but they're definitely not selfless. They're kind of selfish in a way. It's hard to explain, but they don't really see the need to care about anybody else. They only, quote unquote, care about others if they're useful to them. Because, well, it's like, why should I care about them? They're not me. I'm me. I'm doing what I need to do to survive. I don't need to help them. They can help me. And they might do things for other people sometimes, but that's just because it's like, oh, if I help them, then they might help me. They will help me. Because they understand how that sort of thing works. But sociopaths and psychopaths both tend to be compulsive liars, in a way. They lie. It's just how they work. I don't remember the exact reason, but I know they do. And also it's because they don't really feel as bad about it. It's with a psychopath can't really love. Sociopath can. It's harder, way harder, but they can. If a psychopath marries someone, it's probably because they find that person useful. They can't really form emotional bonds. I think they know respect. I think they can respect because they at least know how to show respect, because they know that if they don't, things won't really go their way. But they know who's useful and who isn't. And if a psychopath marries someone, it's because that person's useful to them. And I'm fairly sure it's unlikely that a psychopath will have children, because, well, yeah. But then again, psychopaths can still, yeah, they might not feel emotional connections, but they can still have sexual attraction, I believe. So that could also be a reason why. Only marrying someone for sex, that's great. But yeah. So then, that's why they would end up having children. It's like, oh fuck. Well, I don't know what to do with this little shit. So then, if the child that they have isn't a psychopath too, the child might become a sociopath because their psychopath of a parent, literal psychopath, can't really care about the child's emotions as well, and might end up traumatizing them. So, yeah. But, anyways, yeah, now, it's not their fault that they're like that. It's not. Now, sorry, this is kind of a complicated thing, but yeah, a psychopath is a psychopath because that's how they were born. A sociopath is a sociopath because, well, it's kind of their brain's way of protecting them. If they shut out emotions, then they don't really feel them as much. and it doesn't hurt as much. Because their brain's also afraid that they're going to get hurt again. It's like, nope, never again. Never again. But they still have the ability to. It's just harder. Which... It's like... It's like a psychopath is a tiger, and a sociopath is a really realistic-looking plush tiger. They seem alike, but one's softer, pretty much. One is softer, and yeah, well, can't really hurt you as much. Well, in the analogy's case, not necessarily. Not a good analogy, I don't think, then, but it's softer, basically, a softer version. Sociopaths can feel sympathy. Empathy is harder, but they can feel sympathy. It's just like, if they don't care about someone, if they don't really know a person, they won't care about them. That's just how it is. Because, like, why should I? I don't know them. They haven't done anything for me. I don't care. But if they do know a person and they like the person, then they're like, oh, I might be nicer. I might. They might be cool. I don't know. So it's just, they're not necessarily bad people. And honestly, psychopaths get the worst of it, but they both get kind of a bad rep. But yeah, psychopaths do get the worst of it. They can live pretty much perfectly normal lives, at least from the outside. They can live normal lives. They can. They can live their whole life without hurting anyone. Well, not any more than a normal person would hurt anyone anyways. They can. It may be harder, but they can. And it's not fair that they get such a bad rep. I mean, it's understandable, but it's still not fair. Because killing someone doesn't make you a psychopath. And being a psychopath doesn't mean you kill someone. Not all murderers were psychopaths, you know. Not all murderers are psychopaths. Some people just break. They snap and kill. And other people, serial killers tend to be psychopaths, but there are very few that aren't or weren't. And those are the people that is like, definitely they're bad people. Of course, it's not good to kill people. It's not good to be a serial killer at all. But with a psychopath, you can't, the morality of it doesn't really affect them. You can't apply morality to them. Because they don't really get morality in like a personal sense. They can understand it, but it's like, no, you can't really apply that to them. Because it's not like they see, it's not like they, okay, a non-psychopath, like someone who isn't a psychopath or a sociopath, a quote-unquote somewhat normal person, can, like, a somewhat normal, you know, kind of quote-unquote normal person that becomes a serial killer, that kind of person, you can put you can put the morals on them. You can say that person is morally bad as well. Because the thing is, they can care about people, but they don't care about the people they kill. Now, that might not necessarily be true. They might care. But we're assuming they're completely sane and not, like, thinking they're being told by God or the devil or some shit to, like, kill people. We're assuming that. Because that's a whole different situation entirely. But so if they're sane and they kill people, they most likely, like, and they keep killing, they're a serial killer, then they most likely don't care. Which is different from a psychopath, because the thing is, this person has the ability to care. A psychopath doesn't. They can care, but they don't. Which is morally worse than a psychopath being a serial killer. Now, it's worse. They're both very bad from any sort of standpoint. But when you get to the moral standpoint, you can't apply the moral standpoint to the psychopath, because they care about everyone the same amount. Not including themselves, of course. But they care about everyone that isn't them the same amount. But the other person, that's not true. They do care about other people. But they don't care about the people they're killing, which is worse. It is. I'm sorry if this doesn't make sense. It's just, I'm not excusing any sort of murder. I'm not. At all. But I am saying, I'm not excusing, but I am saying reasons. Some people don't understand the difference between an excuse and a reason. It's really annoying. It's frustrating. I'm not excusing. I'm just saying that morally, a non-psychopathic and non-sociopathic serial killer is worse than a psychopathic or sociopathic serial killer. So yeah, but anyways, back, I got off topic. Back to what I was saying, that basically, the difference between a psychopath and a sociopath is one can't care and the other can, but it's harder. And that's that. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Bye.